So I had the question last week, why am I slow? And what can I do to get faster? So I've put together a series of videos. This has been on my mind a little bit, so it was actually good timing and a good question to ask. So what these series of videos essentially does is it gives you some fundamental knowledge and how to use our 12-week framework and use these series of weeks and series of things that we work on to help you improve as a swimmer. It also means that us as coaches, we now know, if you watch these videos, we know that you have this level of understanding, and it makes communication between us a lot easier, which is the most important thing. So, let's get started. So the first video, you need to have an understanding of speed. What is speed? So if I said to you, you swam 5 meters per second, it means absolutely nothing. So for the context of the sessions that we do, speed is your time over a specific distance. So say 50 meters, you might swim 40 seconds, okay? So that's how we measure it within the sessions, is your speed or the time it takes you to swim a distance. Now, there's different variations of speed, because when we're talking about speed, it's not just one thing. So I've put a series of distances here from 25 meters to 1,000 meters. It could go on and on and on. At this shorter distance level, essentially the parts that make that up are more based around your technique and your ability to produce power. Think of like a 100-meter Olympic running sprinter. You look at their physique, they're very powerful, and they spend a lot of time refining technique, okay? Because it's such a short period of time. We're not dipping into different energy systems. As the distance gets greater, there's more reliance on how efficient is your technique. So how well can you swim without wasting energy, and your ability to endure it. So it's a little bit more of a fitness aspect as we go further down in distance. Number one. So part two, what makes up your speed? So what measurements go into that time that you achieved over that distance? So for this example, we're using 50 meters. So within that 50 meters, you have a certain number of strokes that it takes you to complete it. That is your stroke length. And you swim at a certain speed of stroke. That is your stroke rate. So I've got two examples here. Swimmer 1 completes the 50 meters in 50 strokes and swims at 1 stroke per second. The time at the end of that 50 meters is 50 seconds. Swimmer number 2 takes 100 strokes to complete that 50 meters, but they swim slightly faster at 2 strokes per second. They also complete that 50 meters in 50 seconds. So visually, to look at them, one is spinning their arms but not traveling a long way. The other one is taking a lot longer to get their strokes around, but they're traveling a lot further. So they essentially achieve, or they do achieve, exactly the same time at the end of the 50 meters. Okay, so what attributes influence those measurements? So you swim a 50 meter, you take a number of strokes, you do it at a certain rate. What specific attributes to you have a big influence on those measures? Now, for this example, I've crudely separated them, but I think they're very intertwined, but I think this gives a little bit of or helps in understanding them a little bit more. So, for our stroke length, it is not always, but a lot driven by your technique. So think of the number of strokes you take in one specific length is very related to your technical ability in that stroke. If we're looking at stroke rate, so the speed that you spin, you can turn your arms over at any given intensity, is generally down to your fitness, okay? And I'm not going to get into the word of fitness because it's very specific to what you're training for. Anyway, so look at stroke length as technique, your technical ability, and stroke rate is your fitness for that given intensity or distance. So within that, these are some just human attributes. So we have your ability to feel the water. So what history do you have from a very young age of being able to manipulate yourself in water? All right? State of mind. So how happy are you when you get to the pool? How good was your sleep? Were the kids driving you nuts the previous day? Did you have an amazingly relaxing weekend and a good sleep and turn up ready to go? So your state of mind has a big influence on this. The time of the day has a big influence. Your body dimensions, how tall you are, how wide you are, how long are your arms, how long are your legs. Your body composition, so how much muscle do you have? Are you male or are you female? These have a lot of influence on the way that your body sits in the water, okay? And it's very individual to you. Your training history, so how much training have you done in your life? How much understanding do you have of the stroke and your ability? Your age has a massive impact on this, and your mobility. So how good are you at getting into a position of strength, and how much strength do you have in that position? And these are just a small snippet. There are hundreds of these attributes that will influence that little thing of how many strokes you take and how fast you can take them. So, where do I start? The most important thing that you need to understand is you need your own reference point. Okay, you need these measurements that you are always coming back to be able to test yourself. All right? So the first one is you need to understand or have a database of your own stroke counts. You need to know how many strokes it takes you to do 25 meters as a single 25 meters. You need to know how many strokes it takes you to swim an easy 25 meters. You need to know how many strokes it takes you to swim a fast 25 meters. You need to understand how your stroke counts change as you increase the distance that you're swimming. What trend do you follow? Do you tend to be able to hold your stroke counts, or do your stroke counts tend to rise as you get a little bit more fatigued? And you need to have a really good understanding. They're not always going to be the same, and as we talked about with the attributes that you have, each day can be slightly different. So you need to understand these subtle differences. And the more information you have around your stroke counts, the better you're able to process information. So, the second one is know your times. Know how fast you can do a 25 meter. Know what an easy 25 meter takes. Know what a fast 100 meter takes. Know what a steady 100 meter takes. Know what a slow 100 meter takes. Again, just like stroke counts, you need to have a database of these measurements in the back of your head so that you have context for information that is given to you. You can never ever do this too much. All right? It doesn't need to be the whole session. You can do little snippets. You're in the pool for an hour, hour 15. There are plenty of opportunities for you to just keep gathering a little bit more information every single session. Always do a little bit of counting, or you don't always need to know your times, but you do need to have a reference point of what your times are at different intensities on different days. Okay, so how do I use these measurements that I've been taking, the times and your stroke counts, to see improvement? So there's two options here. You can have a mix of these, but again, for the purposes of simplicity, we've got two different options here. So at a sustained effort, whether that's easy or whether that's strong, try and lower your stroke counts. Okay? So let's say I swim doing a repeat of 10 times 50 meters. My starting stroke count is 50. I'm holding my time at the same rate. So every 50 meters, let's say I swim 50 seconds. But I'm able, over those 10 50s, to gradually lower my stroke count to 46. Okay? That represents an improvement in what you've done. So even though your time has remained the same, you're able to complete that 50 meters in less strokes. Okay? So you're more efficient. The other one is to maintain your stroke count, but progress your effort. So let's say those same 1050s, we start on 50 strokes, we take 50 strokes on every single 50, but our time goes from 50 seconds down to 42 seconds. Okay, so we're able to swim faster at the same stroke count. All right? So that means our stroke rate is improving. So these are two ways that you can measure improvement. Now, this doesn't need to be done on every set, on every day, but you want to observe, just like how you're building up that database of what your stroke counts and what your times are, you need to know what trends that you specifically kind of see in your own swimming. So as I fatigue, am I able to maintain a stroke count? Or am I able to better my stroke count? When I'm doing a longer swim, say a 400-meter swim, what does my stroke count look like at the end of the swim compared to the start? So you can use these little things as like little sprinkles in different sets. You might be doing a set of 10 100s and you just count the last length. So you don't have to think too much in the first 3 lengths, but the last length you decide to count your strokes every single 100, and your goal for that set might be to keep the stroke count the same on the last length. Okay? Or you might decide halfway through that set, why don't I count the first length? And then you can compare the first length and the last length. And you've got these little measurements that give you a little bit of motivation to help you kind of get a little bit better within that set. And the other option is you could do both. You could try and lower your stroke count and get faster. Obviously that's a little bit harder, all right? But any combination of this is showing slight improvement, okay? Okay, so how does this all fit into the 12-week framework? So the 12-week framework is a chance for you to hit different aspects of your swimming and just slowly build those up to influence the measurements that we're taking, all right? So the measurements are the most important thing, because if you don't have a reference point of where you are, you have no idea where you're going, all right? So the most important thing, as we talked about a couple of videos ago, is to make sure you're getting your stroke counts and make sure you're getting your times, because we could work on these attributes as much as we want, but we don't know whether we're improving if we're not taking these measurements, all right? So the themes that we work through, so every week we have a different theme, and that cycles through 3 times in the 12 weeks. It gives us, so breathing is our fuel source, okay? It's how we produce energy, it's how we sustain energy. So if you're not optimizing your breathing, you're not going to get the most out of what your body's doing. The second most important is your shape. So what is the shape of your boat? How smoothly can you move through the water? Propulsion, how good is your ability to hold the water and propel yourself past? How good is your engine? And then coordination is everything together. So how well does everything fit in? How much rhythm do I have? How good can I feel at different intensities? And these themes are working on those different attributes that you have to build up your technique or your stroke count, okay? Essentially. Obviously, these are all blended in together, but try and think of these themes as building up your ability to be a better technical swimmer and analyze yourself. And then we've got our training aspects, which are working on 3 different aspects of fitness. So we've got speed, or your ability to produce power and turn your arms over at a really strong rate at a low stroke count. We've got your distance, so how efficient is your stroke? How good is your ability to sustain energy, or to limit the amount of energy that you're using and sustain it over a period of time? And you've got your threshold, which is how well can you sustain intensity over a period of time. And these are going to help influence your stroke rate, so the ability or the speed that you can turn your arms over for a given distance, for a given length, for a given distance or a given period of time. So all of these are working on attributes, and they are going to influence these measurements, all right? And this is very individual. We keep cycling through it, so you get to touch on these different aspects of technique and different aspects of fitness, and you're slowly building a better understanding of your ability to swim, okay? And then you're measuring it with your stroke count and your stroke rate. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so this last, we'll call this a bonus video. So the importance of you improving as many attributes you have as a swimmer. And this is a life thing as well. So attributes that you have that we talked about before. Your ability to breathe, your ability to position yourself in the water, your ability to propel yourself, your ability to hold a rhythm and coordinate it, and then the different fitness aspects, your ability to produce power, your ability to produce power over time, and your ability to be efficient. So these are all things that make up a really good swimmer. Because the more tools you have, the more stuff you can do, the more interesting things are, and the more fun you can have. All right? And also, when something isn't working, you have the ability to focus on something else and improve that. So we might find that our times aren't getting faster, but that's okay. We can focus on improving our ability to do those same times in an easier way. Okay? So by having all of these tools and working on these different aspects of your swimming, you're building up your ability to enjoy yourself more, essentially. And this, as a swimming amateur swimmer, you are not targeting an absolute specific goal. You are trying to be a better generalist, okay? And in terms of physical health, the more general we are and the more we understand our body from different angles, the more healthy we're going to be, okay? Psychologically and physically. Because if we focus ourselves on too small a goal, there's always going to be plateaus and you will just get frustrated and get angry. So when something's not going right, just change the focus a little bit, okay? And then you can always come back to it. You might find that focusing your energy on another area, you come back to the thing that you're originally working on and you're just automatically better at it. So make sure you're always trying to improve all of these attributes that you're trying to build towards.